What the heck is up, you guys? It's your boy Ace, aka Animated Heroes here, back with another top 10 video. And today what we're going to be doing is discussing my top 10 most disappointing figures in 2023. And I already know, you're giving us a disappointed video before you give us the top 10? Yes. And I'm going to tell you guys why. Because there were so many releases in 2023 that I got to go back and check a lot of my figures to see when they came out, because there's some I know I want to add to the list, and then there's some I'm like, I kind of want to add this, but did this come out this year? And so I got to do my research before I compose that one. And honestly, it's probably going to be like a top 15, maybe even top 20, man, because there are a lot of good figures that came out this year that I really want to add to a list. And so we're just going to have to see once I get to that. For now, this is what we're going to discuss. Now, I do want to go ahead and throw this out there. I don't feel like I should have to say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. This video is subjective. Everything is going to be my personal opinion. You guys don't have to agree with me. I'm going to say some negative things. That's what this video is consisting of. It's going to be my top 10 most disappointing figures, meaning that obviously there are going to be some negatives that I have to discuss in this video. Now, that being said, some of these figures I just kind of wanted to throw on here for specific reasons that might not be articulation, accessories, price points, aesthetics, or any of that. Some of them, I just have my own reasons for why I'm going to throw them on this list. And that might not necessarily mean that they're a bad figure. It might just mean it's not exactly what I wanted. And you guys will see what I mean with probably the very first figure that I discuss. But yeah, I think I got everything out of the way. Now, for you guys that are new here, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. If you've already been here for a while, don't forget to hit that like button. I would greatly appreciate it. Now, let's go ahead and get into the list, starting off with number 10. Now, number 10 is going to be none other than the king of curses himself, the SH Figuarts Jujutsu Kaisen Greatness, Sakuna. Now, wait a minute. Before y'all start firing me up, go into the comment section. What you talking about, Ace? You love the figure? All right. Cool off. I do absolutely love this figure. Well, why is it on the list? Okay, I'm going to tell you. The reason this figure is on the list is because, if you guys don't remember, a year ago, I announced that we were going to be getting an SH Figuarts Sakuna, and I gave you guys my predictions. Now, when I said that we were going to be getting an SH Figuarts Sakuna, obviously, I think I envisioned exactly what most people did, which was the version where he's inside of Yuji, where he's wearing the robe, the kimono, whatever you want to call it, and he looks really badass just sitting on his throne most of the time. I was not expecting them to give us this version where he fights Megami, because this is a look we literally only get one time in the anime, all the way up to the current arc in the manga. Yes, mild spoiler, we're just never going to see this look again. And so I was like, I mean, it looks good. The lower half is obviously the reuse from the Yuji Itadori figure. The upper half is brand new, and it looks amazing. I love the sculpted muscles, the sculpted detail, all the tattoos, all the crazy face plates, the new sculpted hair. It is all absolutely stunning, and it makes for a really great action figure, but it is one that I preferred to have gotten much later rather than so soon in the line. I truly wish that we would have gotten the look where he's wearing the kimono. I just think that would have made for a much better figure, especially if they incorporated all the articulation and everything like they've been doing with the Naruto line. So again, this is not a bad figure at all. He's definitely worth adding to your collection. It's just not the one that I wanted personally. Coming in at number 9, I'm sure it's no secret to anyone that there was going to be some One Piece in this video, because as we all know, the SH Figuarts One Piece line is extremely disappointing right now. And it's just because they have not, it's like they really haven't been giving these figures their all. And it sucks because we're getting so many good figures from other lines. The Naruto line has not missed yet. The Chainsaw Man line is just phenomenal. I think that the Bleach line is good, but I know a lot of people aren't collecting them. And there's still plenty of other things that they released, and it's like, yo, this is amazing. But the One Piece line, as well as one other that we're going to talk about a little bit later from Tamashii Nations, it just ain't doing it, man. It just ain't doing it. Now, this Luffy is not that bad, which is exactly why he's so high on the list. The closer we get to number one, the worse the figure. But we'll get into that a little bit later. Anyway, the Luffy is not that bad. He's an okay figure and still well worth having in your collection. For the most part, the only issue I personally have with this figure is the fact that the articulation is extremely lackluster. You can't get him into a gear second pose. The knees on this guy are just terrible. I feel like they could have done the shoulder joints a whole lot better, even though I'm not going to complain about them. I mean, they work. They're still effective, but it's just, it could have been done so much better. So much better. And I know some people hate the fact that it's a Build-A-Figure, so I'm going to throw that in there. It's not a problem with me because it's just a business practice, and Tamashii Nations is a business. So for the people who are upset that he has accessories coming with other figures, there's really nothing you can do about that, man. Tamashii Nations has to sell this figure and they have to sell the others, and so that's just how it works. But overall, coming in at number 9, we have the SH Figuarts Luffy, still worth getting, and I believe he's still roughly around $30 US. So get your hands on him if you want it. Next up is a figure that I kind of had to figure out where to put on the list because just like the first few that I discussed, this is not a bad figure at all. It just has some issues that I don't like. Now, I'm cherry picking with this one. I'm going to be honest with you. The only thing I dislike about this figure is the arms, man. If I'm being completely honest with you guys, I don't like the way that they engineered the tentacles on this guy just because they're difficult to move around and pose like you want. They kind of have this issue where they want to warp back to however you had them posed last. And it makes it pretty irritating when you try to get this guy in some different kind of poses. Now, I could take it a step further and say, oh, I wish he had a diaphragm joint, or oh, I wish he had some kind of torso articulation. But Doc Ock is pretty static most of the time, so it's not like it's something that's necessary. But I mean, if you wanted to throw that out there, then yeah, you definitely can. Other than that, man, I almost said the F word. I really love this figure, and if you're someone who collects imports and domestic figures like myself, and you like Spider-Man, you gotta add this guy to your collection, man. He is definitely worth having, and he's a blast, man. He looks great. They captured the look of the actor to the T. So yeah, definitely pick up this guy if you can get your hands on him. Coming in at number 7 is one I already know the Dragon Ball fans are not going to agree with, but I'm sorry. Had to throw this guy on the list, man, because this is where the problem starts. So from this point on, every figure I discuss is going to have some problems. Now, what's the issue with the trunks? He looks great. When you reviewed him, you said it was a good figure, and it definitely is. But this guy suffers from loose joints. That is probably my number 1 issue with this figure. Wobbly legs kill it for me. And then on top of that, the ankles are always wanting to lean forward, lean backwards. It's so hard to get him to hold a pose sometimes. I'm not one of those people that's going to complain about the arm popping off. That really doesn't bother me all that much because if I'm being honest, it stays on most of the time. I haven't had any issues of it popping off while I'm posing him around. That's not something that bothers me. It's really just the legs. I'm not someone who's going to complain about the way the legs are engineered or the design. I think it works, and I think it looks well enough. I like that Tamashii Nations is trying some new things, and for the most part, it doesn't hurt the overall look of the figure for me. Now, the last issue I have with this guy is the sword. Now, I know they decided they wanted to try something different because it didn't work with the first one. A lot of people were breaking the peg that pegged into the back of the figure, but this just isn't the way to do it because this is worse in my opinion. Now, granted, I got the sword on him right now, but if I want to get him in certain poses where he's trying to grip the sword or just sitting still with the sword in the hilt, sometimes it tends to fall off way too much. I don't like the way that they did this. Honestly, I wish they would have just stuck with the way that they had done it before. Granted, they would have had to switch some things up because of the fact that the centerpiece of the jacket is a soft plastic. Again, that doesn't bother me. Some people don't like it. For me, it's just the loose joints and the overall design and way that they structured for him to utilize the sword. Don't like it, man. And so I'm hoping that the updated version at least fixes the loose joints. I doubt they're going to change the sword, but yeah, that is why Trunks is on the list. Now, the next figure on the list is one of the ones that definitely hurt me the most this year. It is none other than the SH Figuarts Spider-Man No Way Home, or the Amazing Spider-Man 2, whichever you want to call it. It's the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. And I'm sure you guys have your reasons why you think I put this on the list. It might be completely different than what you're thinking. Now, if you guys remember, Tamashii Nations had an event last year where they showcased this figure, and a lot of people were complaining that the proportions were off. That was the main issue most people had with this guy, and to be honest, I was the person who was optimistic and saying, no, Tamashii Nations is going to change it. They're going to fix it. It's going to be better once it releases. You guys are going to see. Of course, the Marvel Legends community was throwing in their 2 cents, but we don't want to get into that Spider-Man 3-pack, so I'm going to leave that alone. Anyway, back to this guy here. It came out, and it was just as they showcased. The proportions were completely off, and I mean, Andrew Garfield is a tall, lanky guy. They got that part correct, but the upper body on this figure is just way too long in comparison to the legs. The proportions don't add up the way that they're supposed to. On top of that, the neck is really long, and I feel like the shoulders sit out way too wide. Like they should have been a bit more narrow. But other than that, the figure definitely looks good in terms of the paint that they used. Sculpting wise, I think that they did a great job. I like this figure, but at the same time, I dislike it because also he didn't come with a pair of fist hands. And it's like, oh my gosh, how did Tom Holland and Tobey Maguire come with fist hands, but this one didn't? On top of that, they took out the Andrew Garfield head. Now, I'm not going to be mad about that because they came out, they told us we weren't going to be getting it. And I mean, when something says pending approval, that doesn't mean it's guaranteed. So I wasn't really upset about that. There's so many third-party options these days. That wasn't really a contributing factor to this figure being added to the list. It's just the fact that it didn't turn out the way that I wanted. So I'm hoping for a Mafex version. Till then, I'm still going to try to enjoy this guy the best I can. But out of the No Way Home trio, in my opinion, this is the worst. And it sucks because he is my favorite out of the 3 Spider-Man. Coming in at number 5 is one that I really wish I didn't have to add to the list. It sucks. I hate adding Batman figures to my most disappointing lists of the year. And sadly, this isn't the only Batman figure that's on the list. I'm sure I just gave you guys what is to come, but we'll get to that when we get to it. Here we have the Medicom Toys, the Batman figure from the Robert Pattinson solo film, which was an absolute masterpiece. You're not going to tell me otherwise. The only reason this figure is on the list is because of the lower body. The lower body, man. When it comes to Medicom Toy, you usually know exactly what to expect from them articulation-wise. Anytime you buy a figure from them, you can pretty much look at it and tell what you're going to get. So I pre-ordered this guy the moment it went up, and I didn't really pay much attention to it because it's Batman. Most of the time, I don't pay attention. I just pre-order it, and I always will. But when I got it in hand and I saw how they went about doing the legs on this guy, I was just like, no, please don't do this. Don't do this. Come on. The SH Figuarts was already a disappointment, and now the only company that could save us screwed it up. The legs on this guy are just, they're just bad, man. They work, of course, but they look so awkward when you get him in poses. The way that they did the thighs when you do the swivel or you pose him with his legs out, the knees are just way too damn big. They look like McFarlane, and then the ankles are practically useless on this guy. Like, they are worse than the Captain America that was made by Medicom Toy. Articulation wise, just from the waist down is horrible. It's horrendous. It's just ineffective. I wish that they would have thought this through before they put this out, because it's not good. Now, granted, it works except for the ankles, but it just looks so bad that you almost don't even want to pose him with his legs out. It's just not good, man. And so I'm sorry, I had to put this guy on the list for that, because when you see Batman, he's always in some dynamic poses. He's always throwing hands. He's in martial arts poses, karate poses, kung fu, whatever it is, because he knows all of that. And so when he looks awkward being posed fighting like that, it just truly takes away from what is Batman in general. So I'm sorry, this guy had to make number 5. Coming in at number 4 is one that I know might disappoint quite a few people, but I don't think it's as many as you would think if you're someone who doesn't agree with what I have to say regarding this figure. Now, hear me out. When I reviewed this figure, I told you guys I do like it, and I do, but there are a ton of issues with this guy. The number one being the hands. The way that they went about the hand pegs for this guy was just so bad, it's unreal. They're almost impossible to interchange without utilizing hot water. And then at the same time, the sword is so big, it's pretty difficult for him to hold with the way that they have them engineered. It definitely should have been a ball peg, and they should have given us something to attach them to the way that Mafex does with their packaging, where you can kind of keep the hands attached to something whenever they're not on him. Therefore, the socket doesn't get smaller due to weathering. It could be hot, it could be cold, and it just makes it really difficult to interchange. Now, another issue is the fact that the arms too long. I'm sorry, I don't care if it's based off of the artwork. They're entirely too long, man, and it looks really freaking goofy. I said that in the review, and I don't like them. Another issue, the shoulders, man. They really hinder the articulation. Now, granted, it's based off of the artwork, but I'm sure there was some way that they could have worked around it. Getting his arms to go out is dang near impossible. It's still fun to pose, but it just feels so limited, man. And I told you guys when I was reviewing it, I said that this is a figure I'm just absolutely scared to pose, man, because I feel like it's just going to break on me. And I did hear of many people saying that it did break on them. This guy is way too expensive for the only good thing about it to be the sculpt. And speaking of the sculpt, I also want to throw this out there. The feet, I don't know, man. I don't know, feet looking a little too flat for me. It looks like flippers, man. It looks like he's wearing swimming shoes, and it's like, where are his feet? They are way too flat. There's no, I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and talk about his feet, but they look off. I said that in the review also, and I know I mentioned my review a couple of times, but this should have been expected if you guys did watch it. And if you didn't, go check it out. You'll see what I had to say about it, and then maybe you'll understand why I feel the way I do about this figure. But yeah, coming in at number 4, I had to throw Guts in here because it's a decent figure, but he is very far from great. Now, finally getting down to the top 3, this is where things get bad. Coming in at number 3 is none other than the SH Figuarts, the Flash Batman figure, or basically another Michael Keaton Batman. And SHF, they dropped the ball on the first one, and then somehow they managed to also do it again with the second one. Now, granted, sculpt-wise and aesthetics, this guy is great. Now, in the review, I complained about the height on him. It's accurate. Michael Keaton, from what I heard, is like 5'8", 5'9". So the fact that this figure is going to be shorter than a lot of Batman figures or even Batman villains or just anything that's designed by SH Figuarts, I get it. So I'm going to go ahead and disregard that comment. But when it comes to this cape, first of all, this cape is terrible. This looks like something I could have made myself. Literally, it's horrible. And as you can see, the material that they use for it isn't even accurate to how it looked in the movie. They should have gone with some type of pleather-ish material, and they should have put better bendy wire in it, because the bendy wire in this is completely unacceptable. It does not hold a pose at all, and it doesn't look anything like this. You cannot get it in this pose at all. It's not going to hold. It's just ridiculous. And then, of course, this up here where the wings are, or the cape is flared out, you have to utilize these accessories that you stick into the cape, and then you attach them to his hands, and it's almost like he's on a glider. It's so weird, man. I don't know why they did that. They could have easily just given this figure a better wired cape. Like, why is Tamashii Nation so bad at doing wired capes? Or better yet, why are they so good at doing it sometimes, and then other times it's like, what the heck is this? And that's not all. Articulation-wise, he moves fine, but the elbows are single jointed. For what reason? Why are they single jointed? The swivel is actually at the elbow because of the fact that it's single jointed. And then something that they did right with the first version, they didn't do with this one. As you guys know, Michael Keaton cannot turn his head in his Batman costume because of the cowl. So with the first release, they actually gave him an extra head sculpt where he's looking to the side. This one doesn't come with one. So if I'm posing him fighting a villain, if the guy is not right in front of him, then he's just kind of looking off to wherever. So the side eyes, when they're actually important, were cut out. And it's so weird, man. I don't know why they made that decision, but Tamashii Nation's just, they don't get it right with their Batman figures. They never get it right. I don't know what department is working on these, but they need to figure it out, man. Or they got to switch it up, because these are just not good, man. I'm seeing these figures sitting on shelves and people just not wanting them. So, yeah, coming in at number 3, Flash Batman from SH Figuarts. Got to do better, Tamashii. Got to do better. Now, number 2 most certainly would have been my number 1 if the number 1 figure didn't exist. Here we have the SH Figuarts One Piece Roronoa Zoro. Now, I'm sure you guys probably already heard every issue that this figure had if you planned on getting your hands on it. So I doubt it's one I got to spend much time talking about. I'm just going to point out everything and then we'll call it quits, because this was one of the most heartbreaking action figures to add to my collection of all time. You guys have no idea how excited I was when I found out that Tamashii Nations was going to be working on the One Piece line. And when I got Luffy and was disappointed, I was sure there was no way they were going to fail with Zoro, because of the fact everyone knows he's a fan favorite character. And if we're being honest, Variable Action Heroes already gave them the blueprint that they needed to follow to make a good Zoro figure, and Tamashii Nations just went completely left. Now, it starts with the shoulders. The shoulders on this figure, absolutely horrible design. Just trying to even utilize the butterfly joints is going to cause them to pop off repeatedly for absolutely no reason. Tamashii Nations has been doing butterfly joints for way too long for there to be an issue with the butterfly joint popping off or the joints coming out of the socket when it comes to these. Like, this is something that they've been doing for years, very effective now. So how could they have messed up on Zoro? It just doesn't make sense, especially someone who they need to get it correct on. Now, I can look past the horrible sash that they did. I don't like the way that that was engineered, but it works, so I'm not going to complain about it. When it comes to the sculpt and design of the chest piece, you do get very limited articulation because of his design. Another thing I'm not going to complain about, because for the most part, it's effective enough for me to utilize it, but it gets worse when you get down to the legs. The sash piece, first of all. This Zoro is not able to hit this pose that I have him in right now without modification. What I mean by that is I actually had to take the skirt, which is a very hard plastic for whatever reason, and trim all the way up the thigh in order for this piece right here to split so that I could use this leg effectively and get him in those outward standing poses for when he's going to do attacks like, I don't know, onigiri or whatever else he might use. Then on top of that, the crotch piece is so weird. The way that they have the front piece attached to it, it actually hinders the leg articulation going forward. So even if the sash wasn't a hard plastic, you still can't get this guy to kick outward for nothing, which was just so strange because other than that, the rest of the legs worked just fine. But it was like they purposely tried to hinder the articulation on this guy. They made literally every decision possible to hinder the articulation on this figure. A figure that needs probably some of the most articulation because Zoro is a very agile swordsman. And so most of the decisions with this figure were just very disappointing. And so that's why he had to come in at number 2. Tamashii Nations, you guys have got to get better with this One Piece line. You got to do better going forward. Now, being completely honest, did you guys even have to put any thought into what number 1 would be? I don't know what it is, man. Figma is aiming for that number 1 spot every year. They put out some good figures, and then they just put out one figure that is absolutely trash. And that is what this figure is right here. And it sucks because despite me just calling it trash, I like this figure. And it has a lot to do with my own personal bias and love for this character. Now, if you watch JJK, you'll know that we lost my boy Nanami tragically this year, and it still hurts my soul. But what hurts my soul even more is the fact that we can't even get a good damn action figure of him because Figma cannot get it together. I was about to say something else, but I censored myself. Figma cannot get it together to make a good damn action figure. Now, granted, sometimes they do okay, but when I really want them to do good, that's when they absolutely fail. Now, to this day, I don't think anything tops how bad the Figma Akaza is. But when I say that this comes close, oh man, it definitely comes close because, first of all, no articulation at the torso. Terrible. Shoulder joints look awful. Oh, you want to see? There you go. Why is that there? Why is that gap there? And floppy legs, come on, Figma. We got to do better than that. And then it doesn't just suck that the legs are floppy. It sucks that they decided they wanted to give him an interchangeable torso for when he takes the top off to his suit, which is a great idea. But when the legs won't stay on the body, what's the point? Why don't they stay on the body, Ace? Oh, I'll show you. Because they utilize this terrible joint right here. Why? You see that there's a ball peg connected right here, right into the lower half. So why is this not a double ball peg? That's all you had to do, a double ball peg. But instead they decided, oh no, we're going to make it to where the legs can come off because technically you can recreate when he gets killed by Mahito. I said the wrong name. Mahito, and his upper half is blown off. Is that what you guys were going for, Figma? Because if that's the case, it was a great job. Otherwise, terrible execution. Terrible execution. So much of this figure is freaking terrible execution. Why does he have a hunchback? Nanami's posture is amongst the best of the show. This man walks with elegance. The ground that he walks on deserves to be worshipped. This figure is horrible. It's horrible. And it sucks because I love Nanami so much. I have forced my brain to like everything that there is to like about this figure, which isn't much. But I'm keeping it in my collection until hopefully SH Figuarts gets to it. And we are going to be making a discussion about the SH Figuarts Jujutsu Kaisen line. There's going to be a video about that coming soon. But anyway, this is my number 1. This figure hurt me so bad, you guys. So bad, you guys. Was not expecting to get stressed out when I did this video, but man, it just sucks. Receiving bad action figures sucks, especially when it's a figures that you absolutely want. And Zoro and Nanami are two figures that I have always wanted to add to my collection ever since I got interested in the characters. Some of the other stuff that I discussed, it was just little minor nitpicks that allowed me to add them to the video. But I had over 5, which is why I wanted to do more than 5. I didn't want to do like a top 6 or top 8 or something weird like that. So again, I just found some other figures to throw in here like Sukuna and whatever else I add to the list. I don't know. But yeah, man, some of the figures are still pretty good. Some of them are worth having in your collection. But if I'm being completely honest with you guys, 2 figures that are not worth adding to your collection are Nanami and Zoro. I'd even go as far as to say Guts, but the Guts figure isn't terrible if you can deal with everything that I mentioned. But anything further back, it's entirely up to you whether you want to add it. I would say it's probably worth it. The Luffy's definitely worth it. Trunks, despite his issues, worth it. The Batman, I guess it's up to you. But overall, this is my top 10 most disappointing figures of 2023. Overall, I hope that you guys found some enjoyment in this video. I hope that you found some things you could laugh at. I did joke around a little bit, even though I was so serious, but we ain't gonna get into that. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, because I spent money on these damn figures I don't like, so the least you can do is give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, or you're new here. Hit that bell icon to be notified whenever I upload new content. And last but not least, follow me on everything you see listed in the description below to keep up with my activity outside of YouTube. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Stay safe wherever you are, and bye.